Police officers of Reddit, what are some things innocent people do that make them seem suspicious? Before we start with the first story, please hit a subscribe and ring the notification bell to stay updated with us. Story 1. I've been a cop long enough that I don't try to guess at people's behavior anymore. People get nervous and act weird around cops. My wife cried the last time she got pulled over. Reply: Officer, I've got my license and registration in my glove box. I'm pulling it out. It's not a gun, haha. Imagine if it was, though. Ha ha. Story 2. Retired police here from UK. Innocent people seem to confess everything even when not a crime, as they're so desperate not to be in trouble. Example: knocking on doors for information. Guy answers door and immediately started to confess his tires are a little bald and he has some dodgy cigarettes and he did accidents drop some litter. Like, dude, chill out, it's fine. Story 3. I was a fire investigator for a while. It was talking a lot. Now, some people just talk a lot when they get nervous, and that's easy to tell. Like, those people aren't actually talking about anything. They're just saying words at you. The suspicious ones are the ones who are clearly trying to talk you directly to where they've set up their diversion but can't. Just stop talking about it and adding more and more and more details, to the point where they've remembered too much about what happened. Story 4. Former Leo. I can tell you the most helpful thing for you, yet most infuriating to the LEO, is to keep your mouth shut. Just, quit talking. It will be much better for you in the long run. I was never looking to just jam somebody up, but man, people get themselves in so much trouble with their mouth. Story 5. Run. LO, my friend would see cops and just bolt down the street in the opposite direction after eyeballing AM for a few secs. They'd blast sirens, make a UA and drive after him. For nothing a lull. He just thought it was fun to f with them. If they caught up to him, he'd just be like, "Hi, officers. Need something?" They'd search him or his bag, but he never had stuff. Makes good practice, haha. Story 6. So I actually am a police officer. One time I was just driving around and there was a lone dude walking towards me, and he made it a point to not look at my police car, just looking any direction. But it was like 3 a.m. and he and I were the only on the road. Obviously suspicious because most not guilty people will look and stare at us, so I flipped my car around and dude hoofs it. Gets like 20 feet and slips on the ice. I drive up and he's someone I knew breaking curfew. Got a free ride to jail. Story 7. I was coming home from a funeral and got pulled over because I was crying and I guess not driving very fast because I didn't want to go back to work when I still needed some time. Cop walked up all bowed up with this gun in his hand and totally freaked me out. We had a conversation and I hadn't broken any laws. He just thought it was weird I was driving the speed limit and thought I was casing the houses. He only put the gun away when he headed back to his car. He made me so nervous I am sure I gave off all kinds warning signs, but that drawn gun was over the top. Story 8. I recall a story of a statey who pulled over a car and the adult male was wearing a diaper. That's it. The trooper looks in the back seat and sees more diapers and baby powder and other stuff. The trooper said to the guy, "You're a sick bastard." The trooper let him go, and the diaper guy called the trooper's boss and complained that he was being harassed. 2L true story. Story 9. Story time. I live in Canada and a guy I know was borrowing his boss's car to drive to the US for the day, either because the car did not match his name or because he acted nervous. The border guy wanted to search the car. He pulled out a bag of white powder from under the passenger seat and asked, "What is this?" My friend just said, "I never saw that before and it is not mine." It turned out the boss's girlfriend liked tequila and kept lemon and salt in the car. It took about a half hour to identify it, but my friend must have aged 10 years. Story 10. My stepdad is a cop. He said that normally if they want to pull a specific car over, all you have to do is follow it for a while and eventually they will break some minor infraction, either because they are nervous from a marked unit following or because there are just so many different laws that people break on the regular, crossing the line, slightly swerving, following to close, driving to slow, not turning on the turning signal soon enough. So basically if you're being railed by a cop and he wants to pull you over, he can. Story 11. I am a cop. 1. When I'm asking basic questions, who, what, when, where, why, and you have a 5-minute, irrelevant backstory prior to answering a yes or no question. Also, not having reasonable answers to basic questions, and no explanation as to why you can't answer. E.g., woman got her car stolen. When I tried to narrow down a scene and time frame, she couldn't give me a general vicinity, even after I pulled up Google Maps. When I asked for a time frame of when she parked the car and then noticed it was missing, I got a 5-minute backstory on how she had to drop her kids off over here, and then went over there, and then went to this place for a booty call, only for her to provide inconsistent time frames. Do I believe her Hyundai was stolen? It's a Hyundai, so yeah, probably. Was her demeanor suspicious and atypical for someone who had a car stolen? Yes. 2. If I'm parked in a parking lot, don't get out of a car and aggressively approach me with your hands in your pockets to ask what time it is. 3. If you're driving and I happen to turn behind you, and you start making erratic turns, driving in a route that makes absolutely no sense for a person traveling from point A to point B, or immediately pull into a parking lot or driveway, I find that extremely suspicious. Story 12. I'm a cop in Texas. One of the most common things innocent people do is be aggressive when we show up. For example, we get a 911 hang-up where all the dispatcher heard was a male and female yelling at each other, usually at some apartment complex. We get there and don't see or hear any signs of a disturbance. I see a guy walking to his car and ask if he's seen or heard anything. And the first thing he does is start yelling about his right to go outside or some other dumb thing. Even after explaining the situation, some people never settle down from their little tirade. Reasonable and well-adjusted people don't immediately become this standoffish, so it looks as if they're trying to hide something, like being in a domestic disturbance, perhaps. Also, people who walk through neighborhoods at 2 in the morning wearing all black and carrying a backpack. Sure, there's a million innocent reasons for one to be doing that, but I'm still going to stop out with you regardless. Because it's my job to be nosy, and it's a great deterrent in case that person was up to no good. Story 13. I once sat in on a criminal trial of a guy who was arrested with 2 others on gun and drug charges. The cop who pulled them over took the stand. He was being asked about the reason he pulled them over for the traffic stop that led to the cops finding the drugs and the gun. If I recall correctly, they had expired plates or something like that. But the cop obviously couldn't see that in the speed trap. So the attorney asked why he pulled onto the road and started following them in the first place. I shit you not. The cop said it was because they were driving exactly the speed limit, and none of the people in the car turned their heads to look at the cop when they drove past. He said that was suspicious, because everyone speeds on that road. So they must have been doing something wrong if they weren't speeding. The expired plates gave him the probable cause, but the suspicion came from them just obeying the law. Since then, I never have driven exactly the speed limit. On the highway, I'm at 8 or 9 miles per hour over the speed limit if I'm trying to make good time. If I'm in no rush, I keep it around 5 or 6 over. If I get a Waze notification that there's a cop coming up, I'll drop down to 3 or 4 over, but never the exact speed limit. That never sat right with me. Moral of the story is that cops can pretty much pull you over whenever they want. Even if you've done nothing wrong, they can make something up. It's shitty. Story 14. I had an officer clarify unintentional suspicious activity, if it helps. It was a super hot day, and an officer was just sitting in his car in the hot sun in the parking lot with his window rolled down. I was walking to my car and told him it was pretty hot out, and I was heading to Taco Bell. Asked him if he wanted me to grab him a drink or something while I was there. He said no, he was good. So I hopped in my car and started to pull out of the parking lot. I noticed the officer started pulling out of his spot. I started driving to Taco Bell down the road, and sure enough, the officer was following me. I pulled into the Taco Bell parking lot and parked. The officer pulled up his car behind mine, blocking me in. He started asking all sorts of questions about my personal life, where do I work, and so on. He eventually just said, "What you just did was super suspicious." I asked how being nice to someone is suspicious, and he just put it into drive and drove off. I started walking into Taco Bell and noticed he discreetly pulled into a parking lot across the street. I know the Taco Bell peeps pretty well, so I went in there for an entire hour just chillin', eating, and generally socializing. Afterwards, I left, started driving to a gas station, and the officer pulled out of the parking lot and started following me along with 2 other police cars. Suddenly, I had 3 police cars just following me all over town for the next 15 minutes. They eventually pulled away, and that was it. So I guess being nice to police officers is considered extremely suspicious. Story 15. I was a cop for less than a year, and I'll try to answer this. It's being hostile for no obvious reason. From the temperature in this thread and the other commenters, this won't go over very well. Because F cops, there's no law that says I have to talk to you. I know my rights and so on. Whatever, fair enough. But the answer to the question, what do innocent people do that makes them seem suspicious, is exactly this shit. Normally, people who aren't hiding criminal activity treat cops with some arm's-length politeness and basic civility. They don't want to talk to a cop, but they aren't outright hostile, and they'll answer some questions to get the interaction over with as quickly as possible. People who went the top with the hostility for no apparent reason got my attention. All right, folks, that's a wrap. If you like more of this, please hit a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. You can also share your thoughts in the comment below. I'll see you in the next video.